Welcome, everyone. Let's call this meeting to order. Welcome to the City Business Council Business Meeting for Thursday, October 6, 2022. Let's stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, the Republic, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Scaringi is absent. Councilwoman Riley,
Here.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Present.
Councilman Burns is present. Councilman Scanlon,
Present.
President Strawn is absent, and President Pro Tem Resnetti. Okay. That's 5 here, 2 absent, Scaringi and Strawn.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to approval of minutes. Councilman Scanlon's going to do this tonight, right?
Yes, I will.
Yes. Thank you.
I ask for approval of minutes from the September 21st, 2022 business meeting.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have 4 public hearings tonight. I'll have Mr. Rogers, our clerk here, introduce the first public hearing.
Okay, the city of Bennington will hold a public hearing regarding RL 22-215 entitled An Ordinance Amending Chapter 410 of the Code of Ordinances zoning to allow cannabis-related businesses in certain zoning districts. If you'd like to speak, please come down. You'll have 5 minutes. And please state your name and if you live or work in the city of Bennington.
Got it on? Okay, I think it's naive to think that the cannabis business can be ring fenced in. Only government would think that you could ring fence the sale of cannabis in a certain area. I'm against this. And, I asked the state, high power people in the state, I said, how come the people that were convicted of sports betting didn't get first dibs on legal sports betting, Question is, does this increase the property values in these areas or does it decrease the property values? And if it increases the property, let's put it this way. I think this is a good spot reassessment case. You want to take a whole section of the city and dedicate it to cannabis, and let's reassess that section of the city. Then we'll find out. And I think that's only fair. It was Jerry Brown that said, how are we going to compete with the Chinese if we're all stoned? And I think that holds true. I don't see this doing the city any good. And I think it's complicated. When you lose moral authority, the whole thing against the law and drugs was that was bad. It was killing people. It was, when you lose that moral authority, then it just becomes a revenue thing. Then it just becomes, let's go in and get these shopkeepers that are going up the Turning Stone and getting their cigarettes up there, what have you. Now, somebody's going to make money for a while, but have you gone over your costs with the police department, with all these other other things. And by the way, have we asked the city judge, is this the end of drug court? You know, all I heard about is how fabulous drug court was, you know, how great it was, you know. Is drug court going to be kaput now? So I think this is a terrible, terrible mistake. And I think that just like the places that didn't get involved in urban renewal are the die for places to go, you know. Well, the places that are not going to be involved in cannabis in any way, shape, and form probably are going to be the places just for sheer aggravation standpoint. But you're in uncharted waters, and I don't know why it would have to be in certain areas. You know, if it's legal, then why does it have to be in certain areas? I can't think of. I'm trying to think of another product. I mean, I know that there's restrictions on alcohol and close to churches, but I don't know. I don't know of another product that's legal where it's limited to the certain district. Are we going to get these people that are prostitutes now without pimps? Are we going to get them in a certain district now? I don't know. Well, it's a terrible, terrible mistake. I think if this can be postponed, I think it would be postponed. But somebody's going to make a ton of money, some way, somehow. And they're going to use a building in the city of Binghamton to make a lot of money. And that is, you are enhancing the property values of this whole area. And it would be interesting to see who's buying these properties.
You have 1 minute.
Is there conflict of interest already on the books? You know, so good luck on that one.
Do we have anyone else? Okay, see no more speakers. I'll entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to our next public hearing. Mr. Clerk.
Okay, at this time, the city of Binghamton will hold a public hearing regarding RL 22-216 entitled an ordinance amending chapter 410 of the Code of Ordinances zoning to address student housing. You'll each have 5 minutes to speak. Please come down one by one and state your name and if you live or work in the city of Binghamton. Thank you. Sorry, is this working? All right, there we go. So my name is Ben Holloway. I'm currently a senior here at Binghamton University. I live in the downtown area. And so I'm here tonight to talk to you guys about the proposed student housing legislation and just some of the, kind of concerns of someone who is a student actually at Binghamton University and kind of the impact that I believe that this will have on the community where I've lived for the last 4 years, being the downtown area. And so when I think about this legislation, I think about the experience of, well, in my own life and also that of my peers. I think that the downtown community and otherwise student housing downtown it's an integral part of the Binghamton experience. And if new housing laws are drawn out where it starts to limit the amount of students that can live in X area, pardon me, that can live in X area across the town. And, I can tell you that I've looked through the map and I know that from, my friends who live all across downtown, while there are certain areas that are, more highly population dense with students than there are, than others, but it's a pretty even spread across the board. And this kind of housing legislation, there'll be a lot of people who, when they decide like, where am I going to go to college? Am I going to go to SUNY Binghamton? Am I going to go to Geneseo? Am I going to go to Cortland? They're going to decide where they want to live based on, what their 4 years is going to look like at that school.
And at Binghamton, being a part of the downtown community is one of the biggest pieces of living here. You can ask anyone, let's see the average track record, you live about a year or two on campus, and then you spend 2 to 3 years downtown. In the case of somebody like me, I'll be pursuing a master's. I'll be here for a 5th year. So 4 years downtown for me then. And there are a lot of people who are in that same boat, but with so much of the college experience for these students being situated in this downtown area, and not to mention, it's not like that's not a known thing when you come to this school. Like I've had tons of friends from my high school came here. I knew going here that I would live on campus for a year or two, and then I'd be living downtown. And that's part of the expected experience when you come to this school. And so I think that at least within this, housing ordinance, I think it's important that at least some assessment of the economic impact that this would have on the overall community needs to be done before it can be, moved forward anymore. Because I think that the students, between housing, medical advice, hardware, supplies, you name it, we spend money on it down here. And if it was not for the local small business owners who run the food shops, the restaurants, the bars, all that, we would have nothing here either. So to me, it's always been this kind of symbiotic relationship between, the city itself and the students. And seeing the decline of at least us, the students, I think that it's worth considering that there may also be, a decline in attendance at Binghamton University over this kind of action, and B, that there'll be less people spending money downtown. And I'm aware of a lot of the, we got the IM3NY factory coming to Endicott, 5,500 jobs, give or take. Obviously, I think that I can tell that the city is starting to look to other places to get this kind of, an economic impact from. And I'm aware of that and I understand it, but I think that it's still worth considering people like me who will happily be spending money downtown at any kind of restaurant store you open. We're good like that as students. So I think that it's important to consider the impact that this kind of legislation would have on students' willingness to even be a part of this community downtown. And I thank you guys for your time.
There's the Wynn Casino and Encore. So this is the Encore. This goes back a long time. Over 20 years ago, the same issues were. The West Side Neighborhood Association was against the students. They had a personal grievance with one guy that was making a little money. He was renting out rooms for 300. Now they're 700. But the Binghamton University, what you've got to understand about that university is extraordinarily poorly managed from an administrative thing. This issue shouldn't even be on the thing. See, they've run over to Johnson City now, and they've run over to Endicott, and you're seeing the prosperity there. You're seeing the gentrification, the census tracts are being demolished. And this really cracks me up. This grocery store that went under in Johnson City. If I was president of the university, I'd grab some people and say, let's go over there. Is it going to kill us to spend a half hour there and buy $100 worth of groceries? These things don't make any sense. And this doesn't either. The solution that was put forth by the West Side neighborhood, well, these students are going to end up downtown. They're going to be off the West Side. Well, that didn't happen now, did it? Now, the first guy to be a student landlord was a guy in the Crab administration. He's still around. A. Anthony Sardula was the guy's name. And he bought a lot of property, and all the real estate. He said, geez, I never heard of this guy. And he had an office downtown, and he was in with Juanita, and he went bankrupt, and whatever. He was in foreclosure. The problem here is on a Binghamton native basis, we don't have any stake. I'm not going to get a mini skirt and serve chicken wings, no matter how much money you give me. So, you know, so I don't have any stake. Your constituents have absolutely, most of them, no stake in the university. Doesn't matter if they close up tomorrow. The size of the university in relationship to the city is out of balance. You know, you can't throw up a stone in New York State without hitting a college, upstate without hitting a college. I mean, there's a million of them, so there's nothing unique. It's how a college town is managed. And normally, and let me tell you where this, and it even goes to things like the open container law. Normally, in any college town, self-respecting college town, there's a crackdown in the beginning of the year. The first 2 weeks of the year, there's a show of force or something. Here's how far you can go, kids. You know, this is what we're going to tolerate. There's none of that here. It's a lousy managed college town because it's a college town by default. No one ever had all these plans. No, you know, oh, we're supposed to solve our poverty. Yeah, right. Tell me about it. So, look, Abdelazim is 150% right. This town needs to be reassessed. And because there's nothing in it for the city. There's absolutely nothing in it for the city. If you can't get increased property valuations from the student rent when rents have tripled and quadrupled, then you're not participating. You're not, you know, I mean, you want to go to Duke University, 18 miles of road they're responsible for. 18 miles of road. They plow it, they pave it, they, you know, I mean, payment in lieu of taxes. You know, Harvey Stanger, after I've been complaining about it, finally took a cop and put him on the Binghamton University bill. They got 6 cops already. But you know what that's about?
You have 1 minute.
That's about if something happens, the poor guy that works for the Johnson City Police Department is going to have to go out and take the heat, and the university got, you know, but they did go after me though. You know, I had a camera out there. Anyway, you need to reassess the city. You need to get the city, and if you're not going to do that, and this guy's not going to do it. Low energy guy. He wants to clutter up Memorial Bridge. He doesn't want to do it. You're up the creek without a paddle, you know, and it's a terrible thing. But at some point in the future, it probably will all go to the Oakdale Mall, and you won't have any students. All it takes is a couple of high-profile incidents, and people leave as fast as they came in.
Is there anyone else?
My name is Mark Liscia. My office is at 65 Leroy Street. I'm here tonight with my wife Cassandra and our daughter Andrea. My wife arrived in Binghamton 19 years ago as a freshman at Binghamton University. I arrived 2 years later as a transfer student. After university, we stayed in the area and worked for local companies while we started our real estate business 15 years ago. This area is home to us, and we decided to raise our family here. Today we run our business full-time along with our employees. We own many properties inside of the current R3 zone and the expanded R3 zone. We also own many properties outside of the R3 zone in other parts of the city. We rent to many families and also to many students. I would like to say thank you to those on City Council and the city employees we have spoken to the last couple of weeks and have helped us answer our questions and concerns about the new legislation and zoning changes. We've been a part of this conversation for 12 years now, and we support almost everything in its current form and believe it's time to make this work to help the local community and all of its stakeholders. I do have some comments and questions I would like to share. First, there are over 6,000 Binghamton University students who live within the city limits. The largest concentration is on the west side, adjacent to downtown and in downtown itself. But there are lots of students who live throughout the far west side neighborhood, up to and including on Floral Avenue, along with Riverside Drive and Main Street corridors, and the south side as well. These students make up a large percentage of our community, And outside of the expanded R3 zone, they live in 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom apartments and mostly cause no issues. Many of these students outside of the proposed new zone are older graduate level students who are studying in master's and PhD programs. They choose to live in these areas because they are residential neighborhoods. We rent to them in 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments because they ask if we have nice apartments in quieter areas of the city. We have properties where we have both students and families residing in different apartments in the same property, and we never have issues with these arrangements. We are local, responsible landlords. I want to make sure that all the students are being recognized and thought of when this legislation is passed, as they are part of our community and neighborhoods. I do not want a few bad landlords who are from out of town with their poor management decisions and choice of tenants to be responsible for making housing arrangements for good students more difficult. Secondly, inside the current R3 zone and the expanded R3 zone, I would ask that you think of adding 4-bedroom houses and apartments into the grandfathering process. If the dwelling units with 5 to 10 bedrooms that are legal are going to be grandfathered, I ask you to do the same with 4 bedrooms. The 4-bedroom houses create less parking problems than their larger counterparts, and I do not agree with making the smaller 4-bedroom units have to conform to higher parking requirements. Another reason why we believe this grandfathering should occur for 4-bedroom houses and apartments is timing. The students have mostly found, secured, and paid deposits for their housing for the lease term that begins in June of 2023 and goes through the end of May 2024. Students always begin their housing search when they arrive to school in September for the following school year. We are over 80% pre-leased for the term beginning in June of next year, as are most of our fellow landlords. If the 4-bedroom houses and apartments inside the new R3 zone are not grandfathered, there could be some potential issues. These include students who have already chosen and signed a lease to live in a smaller 4-bedroom house instead of a larger home with 6, 7, or 8 students will potentially be in housing that is not approved, while the 5, 6, or 7-bedroom home next door is grandfathered and legal. Will students try to break leases because of the new legislation? Will landlords release students from leases while waiting for zoning approval? What if approval is withheld for some reason? I believe that houses that are safe and have zoning certificates or are inventoried as 4 bedrooms already should be included in this grandfathering process. Please keep the timing of implementation in mind as you prepare to pass this legislation and how it affects people
You have 1 minute.
who have signed leases already that end mid-year 2024. Binghamton University is a great institution, and Binghamton is a great city. The university is the most selective in the SUNY system and attracts the brightest minds in all of New York State. The people studying there and doing research work are the future of our state and country. We should do all we can to make sure that all stakeholders are being thought of when passing this legislation, including the students. We want to encourage the students to continue to be part of the community and are to be welcomed and accepted. We want them to dive deeper into our city and county and to stay after graduation and choose Binghamton to be their home, as my wife and I did. The more students we can keep here in Binghamton after their studies are finished, the better this great city will be. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Terry Rennia. I live at 5 Chapin Street in Binghamton, and I also own a couple of businesses in downtown Binghamton. So I want to just address a couple of things that were immediately said before. First, to the students, we love having you here. We love having you downtown. We love having you on the west side of Binghamton. But we do have a whole other population that we need to be conscious of. And so segueing off that to Mark and Cassandra, I had the pleasure of working with Mark and Cassandra 10, 12 years ago. And as landlords on the west side. I can certainly testify that they are super responsible. I know that they rent to students. I know that they also rent to families. I know that they care about the properties that they own. And equally important, they care about the neighborhoods in which they own the properties. I want to follow up by saying, it breaks my heart to say, but Mark and Cassandra, in my experience, are the exception to the student landlords in this town. Certainly, there are some good ones. I do not mean to condemn everyone, but regardless of whether you have good landlords or bad landlords, I have a couple of concerns and questions about the legislation as presented. And again, it's not anti-student, but I live in an R1 neighborhood that borders the area that we're talking about. And I can tell you, there are several properties in my neighborhood, in my R1 neighborhood, that are currently student rentals. This year, it's been fine. In past years, not always fine. There are parking issues, there are garbage issues. There's any number of things that we need to be concerned about. My concern with this plan as it stands is that it appears that what we're doing is spreading, we're eliminating a whole section of R2. We're spreading the R3, and really the neighborhood where that seems to be expanding is a neighborhood that has already been largely mixed recently in the last couple of years with a lot of students in single family homes where additional bedrooms have been added. Homes that are listed with the city as 4-bedroom where 11 people are living. So we know that they've been converted and we haven't enforced the law. Now we're going to extend the R3 and we're talking about grandfathering things. And so you're talking about just instead of enforcing the law, we're just going to move the borders and make it legal. And it creates a whole series of problems for homeowners. On top of all of that, I mean, aside from property values and all of that other stuff, we have a major housing crisis in this city. And by incentivizing landlords, specifically landlords who focus on congregate living, student landlords, we are making our housing crisis for working families much more difficult. When Mayor Cram held his press conference in July, he touted this plan as being a plan to help families who are living paycheck to paycheck have more options. This plan doesn't do this. This plan creates more incentive for landlords who may be irresponsible to pack as many people into a property as they can. Finally, I just want to say, there is a law on the books. You've all heard me say this a million times. It's a rental registration law. It is a law that you already have the mechanisms in place to control this and enforce this. And for whatever reason, the city has chosen not to enforce that law. Under the previous administration, I was hoping it would be different under this administration, but that law is there. The important thing about the law that's on the books that's not being enforced is when that law was written, it was written around a table with people like Mark and Cassandra Liscia, with people like these young men here. There were students, there were homeowners, there were landlords. The stakeholders were at the table. This law seems to be just catering to landlords. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak? Okay. Seeing no more speakers. Oh, and
May we read them?
who's got them? Okay, go ahead. Or three, I think. Is it three?
There are 3 letters we received from the public. And there was one that we received, I guess, beyond the deadline that we would like to read as well.
Let's read the ones that were, that came in, the two.
3 that were approved per the
approved
letter.
Ones. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And no one else has them? You want me to read them all? No one else has copy? Okay. Okay, give us a second. You. I think that's it. It's very tiny. We are trying to read the letters that we received from the public, so you are aware of what we've been receiving from our neighbors and constituents. So that's why you see us moving around. I think for transparency, yes, we did receive it, but I think it's important that you hear them as well. So give us a second. We move a little slow with our technology. I'll just open it and then pass it back and forth. Give us a tag. You have the one what?
So who's going to read these?
We are going to read it once we have them up.
Each one
and-
of you?
Well, if we're using just my computer, I'm gonna have to pass it, so. All right. 'Cause again, you say you can read it? Okay, I'll read this first one. Again, these were received in city council chambers. We have a new rule that any letters must be received before 1 p.m. on the day of the meeting. So I'll read the first one. This is received from Stephanie Carluck. It says, hello, I'm unable to attend City Hall on October 6th due to being out of town that week. However, the zoning law is something that I am interested in and that I would like to comment on. There have been multiple cities that have attempted to enforce a similar law, but they have not found it to be successful. The one avenue that would ensure success for the residents of Binghamton is to make profession a protected class under the Binghamton Fair Housing Act. This would get rid of the discrimination against non-students in the area and open up housing for those that cannot find any due to the overabundance of student private housing. Students are only here for 4 years. The community is here for life. Our lifeblood is being drained and being replaced with temporary residents who add nothing to the culture of this city and leave it in a worse state than it was before, having no pride in the community they are in because it is not their own. Coming from a student who was born and raised in Binghamton, we need to focus on the community and not the university.
Was that the first one? Is that the end?
That concludes the first
Thank you.
letter. I'm passing my computer to Aviva for the second.
Thank you. Let's move on to the next one.
Okay. This is from Erik A. Bear. Dear members of the Planning Commission, I am writing on behalf of a Binghamton landlord to help inform your decisions about the potential impacts of the new student zoning ordinance. While the proposed ordinance has many worthy goals, the means to accomplish them, they should not come at the expense of fundamental fairness or inadvertently be counterproductive. The landlord I represent has provided quality housing for 25 years. He has followed all the rules put forth by the city throughout this entire period. He has never had any code problems, at times even having voluntary inspections. He rents to both community members and students. His tenants have included seniors, vets, young couples, and couples to be, and students, people of all backgrounds and identities. His properties are broadly affordable for this area, providing housing to people who need it. He personally lives next to a building that houses students. He is both a good neighbor and the type of local landlord the city should want to attract and encourage. He is also a vanishing type of landlord. He began his business like many, relying on the stability of the rules issued by the city. The proposed changes will have a significant negative impact on his investment. They will decrease the income available for paying expenses associated with his properties. They will also decrease any price he receives when he finally sells a property, In short, the proposed ordinance will financially squeeze a whole set of responsible landlords. The lack of stability in the regulatory framework will be a concern not only for him and others in the housing market, but for any business that is considering a long-term investment in the city of Binghamton. In short, as written, the proposed ordinance penalizes exactly the kind of landlord the city needs to address the stated problems. There are good and attentive landlords, and there are bad slumlords with many shadings in between. Policy for the best should not be set by the conduct of the worst. If you are not being a part of the problem, why should you have to make highly disruptive changes? In fact, bad landlords will still probably stay bad landlords even with this ordinance. Finally, 2 practical notes. First, the time when any such law goes into effect is important. Many students arrange for the next year's housing before the current school year ends. Leases frequently run for the entire school year. The starting date of the law should take this into consideration so existing leases are not nullified at the end of the first semester. Second, one approach for providing both stability and positive change could be to grandfather existing buildings. That could be contingent on not being the source of problems. There could be an arrangement like lockdown points where violations lead to loss of grandfathered status. I'm sure that with proper consideration, worthy goals can be achieved with fairness. Sincerely, Erik A. Bear.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't know. Okay, yeah. This is from Janine Faulkner. Dear council members, please consider the following information.
Joe. Janine is our deputy
Oh.
clerk.
Excuse me.
Read down.
Then this is what you gave me
They
to read.
emailed it. Let me read it, Joe.
From Erik? You better read it. Janine, you wrote a good letter, though.
Again, I wanted to try to expedite what we were doing. And just for those of you that are not aware, this district impacted is District 3, which is why I received a number of the letters, as well as why the council received letters. And I've had meetings with almost everyone. Okay. The City of Binghamton. Dear council members, please consider the following information presented in this email in consideration of the student housing zoning legislation. This information was previously discussed with Councilwoman Angela Riley from District 3. On March 27th of this year, I was admitted to Wilson Memorial Hospital after noise and the startling effect of one of 3 student parties on Chapin Street. While this was a triggering event, it was also the buildup of 8 months of parties and noise. Noise on Leroy in front of my apartment and house, it has increased since September of 2021. Unfortunately, the many months of noise and being startled when I could sleep took its toll on my health, causing PTSD symptoms. sleep deprivation, and other health issues. Students could be seen stumbling off the BU Blue Bus, domestic fights between partners on my lawn, and loud, vulgar, and swearing sounds were the usual occurrence from Thursday night through Saturday night. Noise and partying often would start as early as 6:30 p.m. and run on weekends until 3 a.m. in the morning. Traffic through the intersection of Chapin and Leroy is often heavy with the students in town. I believe at least 9 motor vehicle accidents have occurred at this same intersection since July of 2021. One MBA on June 27th of this year caused property damage to the home's front porch. Historically, a fatal motor vehicle accident occurred in 2018 in this same spot at this same property at this same intersection. Besides the toll of noise, parties bring trash to the front of my lawn every weekend. As the house is on the corner, it's not just Leroy Street, but Chapin Street exposure. So there's twice the level of noise, trash, and traffic. Students have stolen the no parking sign. Every weekend has meant not just the lack of sleep in peace, but having to actively address the issues with the students from the front porch and calling the police. On nights when the call is made to the Binghamton Police, a female dispatcher responds. Normally her response is, "It's students and it's Friday night." I contacted the mayor's office last fall by calling and sending email with no response. I reached out to BPD Community Outreach and documented the dispatcher's response. I received an email back from Community Outreach, called BPD detectives regarding the sale of drugs, and had no response. Proactively, I attempted to resolve these issues. Officers are often tied up and can take half an hour to respond. Sometimes a second call has to be placed the same night. Ongoing fireworks are still an issue. Besides the student traffic on Chapin Street through July of this year was a source of many calls to BPD. Noise levels causing my windows and floors to vibrate were daily. The noise interfered with my ability to work remotely and sustain income. Snow removal is also affected at this intersection because students park at the corner and it is never well cleaned. Trash day is another issue. The move out with the students' trash piled up and leftovers remaining on lawns for weeks made the city and neighborhood look dirty. The Public Works Department worked diligently for weeks late into the night. If landlords aren't going to provide dumpsters for move out, then there should be a fee to cover manpower and overtime. This year, calls to Amicus have had to take place due to student exposing himself and urinating on my lawn while another threatened to throw up. In addition to police calls, parties of upwards of 50 students has been occurring, with it noise and trash. The city of Cortland also faced similar issues and was able to find legislation language that protected the city's heritage and hardworking people, along with student activity. My hope is that the city will be more proactive in monitoring student housing and its footprint. Thank you.
Thank you. So now that we read those, we will, and let's see. Closes.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Okay, so now we're moving on to the next one.
Okay, so at this time, the city of Binghamton will hold a public hearing regarding RL 22-217 entitled an ordinance to rezone 187 Clinton Street from L2 light and medium industrial to a C4 neighborhood commercial district. You'll have
Would
5
anyone
minutes and
like
please
to
state your
speak?
name and if you live or work in the city.
So
John Solak, New York. Is this the property that's adjacent to Rogers that was part of the book company years ago? Is that? This is where the motor vehicle department was at one time?
Yes.
Okay. I remember when he bought the property, he was talking about an expansion of his business. That's why he bought the property, and he bought it for, now it's going to be something else. So there you go. Everybody knows what's going on in this community. You do business with certain people, they fund your campaigns, and a special favors result. Last mayor was an expert in that and was hustling real estate. This is a special favor. Do you have any idea what the plans are for the, or are you just doing them a favor? In other words, is this part of a project that's under consideration? Yeah?
It is.
Yeah.
Mhm. Clinton Street revitalization.
You know, I remember when they redid Clinton Street and there was an issue about burying the electric cable. So they said 700,000 was too much to bury the electric cables. Maybe you can bury them this time at, you know, like 5 million or 10 million. So it's, is this a profit-making venture or a nonprofit? Just deferred ward action council again? Right. Right. Streetscapes, right? Is that what this is all about?
I'm just going to remind Mr. Solak and members of council that public comment is not a question and answer session, and that's for the
Well, okay.
purposes of moving it along and not eating into your own
Okay.
time. And if you have questions about the legislation or you want to reach out to a member of council, you're welcome to do so.
Okay, I remain ignorant then. Have a nice day. Well, okay, I'm against it. How's that? I'm 100% against it. And I'm 100% against it because I don't know what's going on in this city. I'm against spot zoning. How about that? I'm against special favors. How about that? I'm against people getting rich off politicians and then fueling the money back to them in campaign contributions. So let's keep it the way it is. What's wrong? What is wrong with the way it is? Why does it have to be changed? These are the issues that tonight I'm going to lie in bed and toss and turn over this thing. This is the biggest event. Forget about Ukraine right now. This is the stuff that's keeping me up. You know, this is the stuff that's going to trigger another coronary. So look, I'm against it. I'm against everything except romance.
Okay. Seeing no other speakers, can I entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Yeah, okay, and we'll move on to our last public hearing. Mr. Clerk.
Okay. At this time, the city of Binghamton will hold a public hearing regarding RL 22-218 entitled "A Resolution Authorizing the Mayor to Submit an Application for Funding from the Empire State Development Corporation Restore New York Communities Initiative, Round 6. You'll each have 5 minutes. Please come down one by one and state your full name and if you live or work in the city of Binghamton.
John Solak, Binghamton, New York. Now, why do you think you have to prove this? And why does the mayor have to apply? Now, I would submit to you that it's because there's strings attached. There's compliance issues. It's not free. That's why you have to approve it. Now, I don't know, but I ask you numerous times if you've got documents, and a lot of you say, well, we don't have them. We don't know. But that you have to, I mean, I would rather see an approval of an application than a blank check, an authorization for the mayor to do what he wants to. Oh, boy, it's like the UN now. I don't know. Nobody knows about this compliance issue. But everything should be costed out. Nothing is free. These people in the Corporation Council, their time is valuable. They don't keep time records, but I know their time is valuable. You're just okaying the mayor. Again, comes from the executive branch. You've got to okay it. I'd like to see the mayor down here. Question, was he at a work session or anything? No. I don't know much, and you don't. I bet you don't. Just about maybe this much more than I do on this thing. But whenever you ask a question, it's answered, boy, and then you know.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak? Seeing no more speakers, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close public comment?
Oh, I need a second.
Second.
Not public hearing, right?
Public comment.
Oh.
Oh, public hearing.
Yeah.
I apologize. Make a motion to close public hearing.
I second that
Thank
motion.
you. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so now we need to set a public hearing for our next business meeting. I'll let the clerk announce those details.
Okay, so the city of Binghamton will hold a public hearing regarding the proposed 2023 City of Binghamton budget as amended. This public hearing will take place at the next regular business meeting on October 19th, 2022 at 6 p.m. here in City Council chambers. Residents wishing to participate in the public hearing may do so electronically by emailing their comments prior to 1 p.m. on the day of the meeting to clerk@cityofbinghamton.gov or in person during the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. So now let's move on into our public comment. City residents are welcome to speak. You'll each have 5 minutes to discuss city issues and pending legislation. Please be respectful. Mr. Clerk, please let everyone know how they can participate.
Yes, you'll each have 5 minutes. Please come down one by one and sign in. Please tell us your full name and if you live or work in the city of Binghamton.
My name is John Solak. I live in the city of Binghamton. Congratulations to Chuck Schumer and to Ryan McMahon, to the governor, for finally bringing a project of substance to upstate New York. Now imagine yourself, you're in 9th grade, and you're in 9th grade in the city of Binghamton, or you're in 9th grade in the town of Clay. What's the difference? Well, I'll tell you what the difference is. In Clay, New York, if your parents are fortunate enough to be up there, when you're turning 18, there's going to be a job for you. I mean, you could get married this afternoon. You can start having a family now and pick up the job when you get out of high school. That's the kind of the magnitude of this project. And we are a town of small minds. Here we think it's a big thing. Boscos renewed their lease for another year. I can't believe it. I mean, this shows you what's going on here. When you outsource your economic development to the university, this is precisely what happens. You know, oh, there's going to be 100 jobs, thousands of jobs at Endicott. Yeah, right. It's all university employees. So this thing shows, and I think it shows the way Binghamton is viewed at the state level. And I think it shows where the action is. Now we have the Ryan McMahon 10%, 11% tax cut has $1 billion budget, $1.1 billion, has 360,000 people. We have 200,000 people, $480 million budget. We pay our county executive $5,000 more than Onondaga County. So look, what they did is they turned Conklin into a trucking hub, which it was before, but General Electric was up there for a time. And the problem with warehousing, and it's honest work, don't get me wrong, but you're not creating any added value. You know, you're just moving around Chinese stuff. You're bringing in the returns, moving it back, taking them, you know, whatever. It's just moving stuff around. There's no added value. But this thing is huge. This thing is unbelievable. And, you know, Syracuse has hit some home runs and they've bombed out. I mean, Destiny USA, I guess, was successful for a while, but it wasn't great. But it just shows you that's where the action is. And Utica, brand new hospital, $2 million. Go up and look at it. You want to see something impressive, go and gaze at it. It's unbelievable. And you would assume that a brand new hospital will attract medical talent. That's the assumption. That's the assumption. So when I'm finished here, I'm going there because the only thing that I need is Aldi's in a hospital. I don't need anything any other than that at this age. So, you know, where's this city going? This Memorial Bridge, you know, you can't, they can't plow and salt the thing. And, you know, let me tell you something else. Garo Cacciadorian came to this meeting after they repaired the Memorial Bridge. And he said, someone stole the granite out of Memorial Bridge. And he says, I can take you there. I saw the guy pick it up and take it to his house in the town of Binghamton. And he had a connection to the city. And he says, I'll take you right there. And there was absolutely no interest in doing that. So, you know, I'm going to just say this here. Conservative, liberal, all this stuff. Juanita Crabb, I guess, was a liberal. She got money from Emily's list. 12 years of Juanita Crabb. $30 million expenditure. She built a hotel and a stadium. $30 million in debt. Bucci, a young conservative, worked for Clarence Rapoli in Albany. 12 years of Bucci, $90 million in debt. And he didn't build a damn thing. So, you know, what do you want a guy like me to do? You want me to praise Bucci, who kept the city functioning and made no adjustments when they lost Anatech, the largest taxpayer, largest water customer, and the largest assessment. All because they wouldn't lower the assessment. Philadelphia sales and business, everybody remembers that. I talked to Steve Stein many times. They would have, I don't know if they would have lasted till now, but they would have lasted another 3 or 4 years. Bucci wouldn't budge on the taxes. Regarding Senator Akshar and his women of distinction, I think virtually all of them are in the nonprofit sector. There's no women that's big in science. There's no women professionals. There's no women dentists. Or I mean, what's this woman of distinctions all in the nonprofit sector?
Your 5 minutes is up.
Okay, I can't top that. I'll leave people.
Thank you.
Terry Rennia, 5 Chapin Street. I didn't say the last time I was here, but I'll say it now. Welcome back. It's nice to have public meetings again. And I hope that along with this room being open, we're also going to start to move towards a little more transparency because that has been sadly lacking for a long time. So I know the public hearing on the proposed zoning changes has ended, but I'm going to take this time during public comment to read a letter that was submitted by one of my neighbors, and she happened to send it to me, and asked me to read it. So I'm going to read it into the record. But I also want on the record a couple of notes, speaking of transparency. First note, this 1 o'clock rule is relatively new. Her letter was submitted at 2:10. Second, and why you need 4 hours to print a letter to read it into the record is beyond me. Second of all of your emails on the city website are wrong. So her original letter was submitted at 2:10. It bounced back to her and was resubmitted at 2:31. 2:31. 3.5 hours before your meeting. Print. It really doesn't take that long. When letters are submitted, I know you all get copies, but the public doesn't know if they don't get read out loud. And with that, I'm going to read this letter from Dorian Zaka, who lives on Vincent Street. And I'm old now. Good evening, council members. My apologies for not being able to address you in person. Please read this into the record. On July 19th, Mayor Cram released a statement entitled, "Mayor Cram announces zoning law to curb student housing in Binghamton's residential neighborhoods." In this release, he announced an effort to protect the integrity of single-family residential neighborhoods while expanding the market for non-student rentals to make sure Binghamton families living paycheck to paycheck aren't competing with college students for affordable housing. That was a direct quote. The press release went on to quote Councilmember Resonetti as saying, "When a family buys a home in a single family neighborhood, they shouldn't have to worry about the properties around them turning into student housing and changing the character of where they live," end quote. While I completely agree with those goals and felt at the time that this was a positive step, I am at a loss to understand how the current proposed map actually achieves these goals, as it seems to be actually contradicting those goals. According to the proposed map, the properties in the currently named R2 district from Seminary to approximately Ayers Street and from Oak Street to approximately Chestnut Street, in my mind, gives free rein to student housing developers in a neighborhood where there are still families who rent and who own. Future opportunities for families to rent or buy houses in this neighborhood will become more difficult as developers will always be able to outbid and increase rents. To be clear, I am not anti-students, and these comments are not motivated by a not in my backyard attitude. I am, however, very concerned about the housing crisis in Binghamton and about irresponsible landlording. As a retired 30-year educator in the Binghamton City School District, the direct correlation between housing and the lives of students was a daily occurrence. The instability of constantly moving due to housing costs is traumatizing. The conditions that many families are forced to live in due to housing costs is reprehensible, and the effects on these kids is traumatizing. Legislation is supposed to reflect a concern for this. There is a demographic reality to the choices that are made, and this city appears to be at a crisis point for both working families and professional families choosing to rent and often buy. In addition, I am very suspect of new zoning laws when existing laws were not enforced in many instances. It does seem that a number of the properties that are contained within the boundaries of the newly proposed R3 are properties that were non-compliant to begin with and unenforced. Converting the whole area to R3 would render them legally zoned. That is that affect neighborhoods and families. The issue of zoning cannot be a partisan issue or a district-specific issue. The underlying problems can happen anywhere eventually. As a community-minded resident of Binghamton, I respectfully ask that the zoning proposal be put on hold until such a time as the stated goals of Mayor Cram and Councilmember Rosanetti, as well as many others, can be fully realized and communicated in such a way as to be clear. At this time, the rules of R1 as they pertain to students are not clear, nor is the wisdom of eliminating R2 entirely, nor the manner in which this proposal helps families. Dorian Zaka, thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak? Okay. If there are no more speakers, we can move on to our legislation for tonight. Thank you, everyone, for coming to speak tonight. Okay, so we have one item tonight and second read legislation. Would anyone like to motion to reconsider permanent ordinance 22-132?
So we need a motion to reconsider the ordinance.
For the second reading legislation we're talking?
Correct.
Hold on. 1 second.
It's permanent ordinance 22-132.
I'll make a motion to reconsider permanent ordinance 22-132. Did I read it?
Yeah, the title.
What title?
The title?
Thank you.
Reconsideration of permanent ordinance 22-132.
Can I have a second? Somebody second? Thank you. Any discussion? Councilwoman Riley.
Thank you, Council President. So please clarify, this is the second of the first FEMA check that we discussed, not the second FEMA check that was mentioned at the end of the work session. Because we said there would be two, remember? So what is this one?
This is the first check that we passed at the previous business meeting that the budget lines were incorrect on. So we're correcting those budget lines by reconsidering it.
Okay, we're simply correcting the budget line.
Correct.
And then we will see the second FEMA check later.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Aye.
It's a roll.
So we'll do a roll call vote for the reconsideration. Councilman Scaringi is absent. Council Pro Tem Resnetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns, Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Strawn is absent. So that's 5 ayes, 2 absent, Scaringi and Strawn.
Thank you. So Councilman Scanlon, could you please introduce the legislation for reconsideration?
Reconsideration of permanent ordinance 22-132, an ordinance to amend the 2022 Binghamton Johnson City Joint Sewage Treatment Facilities budget for state and federal emergency disaster assistance.
I'll need a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Yes. Councilman Scaringi is absent. Council Pro Tem Resnetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Strawn is absent. So that's 5 ayes, 2 absent, Scaringi and Strawn.
Thank you. All right, so now let's move on to the preferred agenda. Would anyone like to pull anything from the preferred agenda before we proceed? Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Resnetti. I'd like to pull several pieces of legislation. I apologize. I did sponsor them because I support them, but I don't want them to be on the preferred agenda. So I'd like to pull, please, introductory ordinance 22-140, 22-141, introductory resolution 22-80, 22-81, 22-82, 22-83, and 22-86, please.
22-81.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Clerk, please introduce the preferred agenda items.
Okay, the first item on tonight's preferred agenda is introductory ordinance 22-135, considered in finance. And this is an ordinance to amend the 2022 Binghamton Johnson City Joint Sewage Board budget for lubricants.
Any discussion, any comments on this? Okay, thank you. Next.
Next, we have introductory ordinance 22-139, considered in finance, and this is an ordinance to amend the 2022 general fund budget for office furniture.
Any comments or discussion? Thank you. Next.
Next, we have introductory ordinance 22-142, considered in finance, and this is an ordinance to amend the 2022 DPW budget for snow blades.
Any comments or discussion? Next.
Next, we have introductory ordinance 22-143, considered in finance, and this is an ordinance to amend the 2022 Parks and Recreation budget for a water tightness study and the replacement of a pool liner.
Comments or discussion? Next.
Next, we have introductory ordinance 22-144, considered in finance, and this is an ordinance to amend the 2022 DPW budget for purchase of cold patch.
Any comments or discussion? Next.
Next, we have introductory resolution 22-78, considered in planning. And this is a resolution authorizing mayor to amend the agreement with Roberson Museum for the use of FY47 CDBG and ESG funds.
Comments or discussion? Next.
Next, we have introductory resolution 22-79, considered in planning. And this is a resolution authorizing the mayor to submit an application for funding from the Empire State Development Corporation Restore New York Communities Initiative Round 6.
Comments or discussion? Next.
Next, we have introductory resolution 22-84, considered in finance. And this is a resolution authorizing the mayor to submit a grant application to the EFC for sludge extraction system.
Any comments or discussion? Next.
Next, we have introductory resolution 22-85, considered in finance. And this is a resolution authorizing the mayor to submit a grant application to the EFC for the 6th Ward Interceptor.
Any comments or discussion? Okay.
And that's the entire preferred agenda.
I'll make a motion to accept the preferred agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Scaringi is absent. Council Pro Tem Resnetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Strawn is absent. So that's 5 ayes, 2 absent, Scaringi and Strawn.
Okay, so next we have some items on the non-preferred agenda, plus those that were pulled, and some here have seekers with them. So first up, we have introductory ordinance 22-136, considered in planning. Councilman Scanlon. Okay.
I do 136 then?
Yeah.
Okay. Introductory ordinance 22-136, an ordinance to amend the code of the city of Binghamton, chapter 410 zoning to allow cannabis related businesses in certain zoning districts.
Second.
There's a seeker with this. Motion to declare city council as lead agency under seeker.
Second.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Second. We got a second, right? Thank you. Thank you. All in favor?
Voice vote.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Councilman Scanlon.
We're good?
go ahead. Yep.
Motion to identify the proposed action as type 1 under seeker.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Councilman Scanlon, go ahead.
Motion to issue a negative declaration under seeker for the following reasons. The proposed action will not have a significant impact on the environment, does not conflict with the comprehensive plan and confirms the state legislation regarding adult use cannabis as stated in the negative declaration.
Can I have someone second that? Thank you. Full roll call, please.
So Councilman Scringy is absent. Council Pro Tem Resnetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Are we voting on the seekers? Or are we actually voting on
the seeker.
we're voting on the seeker,
Correct.
but not on the piece of legislation? Okay, so I'll vote yes on the seeker.
Councilman Scanlon
Aye.
and President Strawn is absent. So that's 5 ayes, 2 absent, Scringy and Strawn.
Councilman Scanlon, please continue.
Director, ordinance 22-136, an ordinance amending the Code of City of Binghamton, Chapter 410 zoning to allow cannabis-related businesses in certain zoning districts.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Yes, Madam President.
Councilman Burns?
Yes, I'm not going to be able to support this as it is. I don't know enough about what these businesses are going to be. If they're going to allow smoking and putting people's health in danger that are working there, or and we didn't get a definitive answer on that from the planning department. And young women will be going into these places, and if they're pregnant, their babies could, in the CDC says pregnant women should not be around the marijuana smoke. And I want to know more about what the signage is going to be. Our dope is better than their dope. We're calling it cannabis, but it's dope, in my opinion. So I just don't like the look of it for Binghamton. I just feels wrong for me. Maybe I'm an old fogey, but that's what I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Resnetti. I would like to respectfully disagree with my colleague, Councilman Burns. Well, I think that you bring up some valid points that, it is cannabis is a controlled substance. And I think that we do need to be careful about who and where we're allowing it to be sold and consumed. I have to say that I'm really excited about allowing cannabis to come to the city of Binghamton. I think that it is a lucrative industry, and let's be frank that whether or not it's legal, people are going to be selling and consuming it. And so what I am particularly excited about is the idea that New York State is giving out licenses with preferential consideration for people who have been involved in the justice system with a cannabis related charge. And I think it's time to admit that the war on drugs was and is racist in many ways. It has ravaged communities. And a lot of times the people who are selling cannabis or, other drugs, frankly, on the black market are those who have been shut out of traditional and legal avenues of making money for themselves and their family. I think I have never sold drugs in my life, but I would imagine that people don't wake up and decide that that's a career path that they would like to pursue, but oftentimes it's the only way. It's either that or watch their kids go hungry. And so I'm excited that in some ways we are attempting to right the wrongs that the war on drugs has perpetuated. And I do think that also this could potentially be a huge revenue generating industry for the city of Binghamton. So I can't believe that in my tenure on city council, I get to vote in favor of cannabis legislation. That's really exciting. So thank you very much.
President Trump, Pro Tem, I have mixed feelings about this. I'd like to hold this over to think about this more. I think we can get some questions answered from planning or maybe Perm Council. I have a couple of questions.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is being held over. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to introductory ordinance 22-137. Councilman Scanlon.
Thank you, Madam President. Introductory ordinance 22-137, an ordinance to amend the code of City of Binghamton. Oh, never mind, I'm on the wrong one, right? Same thing. An ordinance to amend the code of the City of Binghamton, Chapter 410, zoning to address student housing.
So I think we have some secret.
We do.
Okay,
Point of order. Do we need a second for the?
yes, we do.
Okay, I'll second.
Thank you.
Motion to declare City Council lead agency under seeker.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Motion to identify the proposed action as unlisted under seeker.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Councilor Scanlon, go ahead.
Motion to issue a negative declaration under seeker for the following reasons. The proposed amendment to the zoning map to rename the defined area is consistent with the existing uses of those lots, as well as with the general character of the surrounding area as stated in the negative declaration.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Full roll call, please.
Yes, Councilman Scaringi is absent. Council Pro Tem Resnetti. Councilwoman Riley,
Nay.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Strawn is absent. So that's 4 ayes, 1 nay Riley, 2 absent Scaringi and Strawn.
Go ahead. Mrs.
Introductory ordinance 22-137, an ordinance to amend the code of the City of Binghamton, Chapter 410, zoning to address student housing.
Can I have a second? Any discussion? Any comments? Was there a second? I thought I heard something. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any discussion? Councilwoman O'Reilly?
I'm going to stand again like everybody else. So again, as I alluded to earlier in this time period, this map is about the 3rd district, which I represent. And because this has been discussed since before we were on council, our first few days of council, where we had this big map placed in front of us and one of our previous council colleagues on this side of the table, it has been a topic of discussion since, again, I've been in office. As you see in front of me, there are letters that even one was put in my mailbox because she doesn't use email. And she felt so strongly, and you see the paper, it's paper, okay, about what's happening. And there are several comments we heard from our colleagues, our neighbors surrounding this legislation that I just don't feel we have enough information. First of all, we value our students. We value all housing owners, particularly those that desire to move in the third district like I did in 2016. We also value our small businesses. And one of the emails I got this week, they told me there's one of the LLCs in this district that has over 1,000 beds in third district in the area that's being rezoned potentially. They rent each bed for $750, and they're making over $750,000 based upon their property load. They pay taxes based upon a residential rate, where compared to our small businesses that are in the area, which are in some of them in areas that are zoned differently, like our pizza, our laundromat, our dry cleaners, they're taxed differently and don't make half as much as some of these LLCs in the district. So this doesn't solve the problem. As we heard, there are many, particularly those surrounding the students that want to live in District 5, 6, 2, and 1. So I am going to make a motion that we hold this over so we can have a detailed discussion, pull the data from when the overlay was drawn up, have students, have landlords, good and bad as described, to have a discussion that has detail. I did not know about the 2023 date because it was presented to me differently. So I then reached out. We didn't know about an implementation date. That is yet to be determined. So if we pass something, we're really passing it without all of the information that is tied to this legislation. Thank you.
So we need. Right, so
I'll second.
somebody second it. Thank you.
Okay. Are we gonna discuss, can I discuss them, Madam President?
Yeah. we're
Yes,
good.
yes.
Because I may not be here at the next meeting. When in regards to the west side. And I'll preface this by saying that I love the west side. I was on Walnut Street when I was born. We moved to Leroy Street. My grandparents lived on Ayers Street, one house away from each other. They got married, moved to Bennett Avenue, where my father was born, in the second floor of a house on Bennett Avenue. So I know the west side. It was my paper route on Ayers and Murray and Oak. I knew every crack and every sidewalk of the west side. That said, we are trying to, in some ways, we're trying to preserve a residential district that is no longer a residential district. It's a business district. The business is student housing. And Ron Saul downtown here, he has to pay business taxes, and he doesn't make nearly as much as these companies, Amicus being one of them. And these are corporations, unless we go and reassess the city, we could make this a business district. Not only could we reassess them as businesses, we should be, rather than be defining a family, we should be defining what a business is. How many beds? Okay, you've got 4 beds. You are, to students, you are a business. The lady next, this thing that she was saying that all those beds, there's like a little less than 200 properties in the district. And I like the new map the mayor's drawn, and I support the mayor in his map. And I'm not going against the mayor here. I'm not really against, I wouldn't vote no on this. I want to support the mayor the best I can, but he does not want to reevaluate the properties. And if we made it a business district, we then tax them. Not only would we getting, some of them are assessed at $50,000 and they're selling for $300,000. So not only would we get that reassessment and we would get the tax on that, but we would be getting a business tax, which is a higher tax. So we could actually, just on this district, probably lower the taxes for the actual homeowners in the city of Binghamton, instead of sending our money to these large corporations who take our money, our tax money, and they call it their profit. So I really would, I would love it to have a meeting with us and the mayor and talk about how we can get a plan to reassess. Let's say we're not going to reassess right away. Let's take a look what the plan is and how it really would affect the homeowners. But I believe that the average homeowner, almost any person that's living in a home, their taxes could go down if we did this properly. And we could lower, as well as lower the tax rate. And if we lowered the tax rate based on this additional money we'd get in, we'd be encouraging more people to come in and build in Binghamton and do new business in Binghamton. They go elsewhere because of this so-called tax rate. The tax rate is so high is because the assessments are so low. We have to have a higher tax rate to get the cash that we need to operate the city. Anyway, I think I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. No? Okay. Councilwoman Riley.
Thank you again, Council Pro Tem Rezanetti. I want to also add to what Councilman Burns said, because it is similar to what I stated. We have the authority in this legislation to make it very similar to what we see as a C5 or C4 neighborhood commercial. If we want to pass this map that was proposed, we can make it C4 and then add language and stipulations as to what is deemed a commercial entity. And we have landlords that are supporting such. And the revenue generated from that tax base can then fund the roads and the signs that we were just talking about that we're not even able to pay for at 5:30. Do you remember that conversation when he said we're not able to meet the cost? Not that, again, that I'm opposed to landlords, good landlords, bad, but again, we have the power to amend it. We have the power to also add how the trash is handled, because everyone that has talked or written us talked about trash. They also talked about noise. We also talked about how the violators, like the student rental on Lincoln Avenue, which is R1, is not being handled. So we have the power to do so. I just want to add that, and that's what council can do. Thank you.
I have one more
Thank you.
thing, is
Go
that
ahead.
we are trying to establish what a family is. Whereas if we made it a business district, the C4, if the fire marshal says that it's safe to have 7 bedrooms in this business district, and they'd have to have the parking, et cetera, then, what I don't see, especially we're grandfathering these people in anyway. We could stop the creation of the 7, grandfather those people in that are going to be within that map, but we should be, we should be trying to get student housing. We should be trying to, we should be we are a college town. We should just embrace it for what it is and get the most that we can get out of it. And the money that we could get, people talk about the dirt and the garbage, we could hire people to go around and make it beautiful all the time. It doesn't have to be. I went down to see my son down in Virginia, down in Charlottesville, and it is perfect. There is not a blade of grass anywhere on any public highway, the medians, everywhere. You go to the medians, some of the medians around town, they're overgrown, et cetera, et cetera. This town is absolutely perfect. Why can't we be even close to that? I don't know. I guess we are close in some neighborhoods, but anyway, that's it. Thanks.
In that President Pro Temp is here, Councilman Scaringi, I'm going to move over and let him take over. Go ahead.
Good evening, residents. Good evening, colleagues. I apologize. I had a class this evening to teach, so I just got out. So Mr. Clerk, where are we? I know we're on the non-preferred, right? 138. Okay. Yep. At this time, the clerk will read into the roll introductory ordinance 22-138.
So this is introductory ordinance 22-138 considered in the planning committee, and it's an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the city of Binghamton to rezone 187 Clinton Street. And we have some seeker motions with this.
At this time, Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon.
Thank you. Motion to declare city council as lead agency under seeker.
Do I hear a second? Voice vote. All's in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Passes. Councilman Scanlon.
Motion to identify the proposed action as unlisted under seeker.
Do I have a second? Councilwoman Resonetti. All's in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Passes unanimously. Councilman Scanlon.
Motion to issue a negative declaration under seeker for the following reasons. The proposed amendment in the zoning map to remove 187 Clinton Street will not have an adverse impact on the environment as stated in the negative declaration.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All motions set by Councilman Scanlon, seconded by Councilwoman Resonetti. The clerk will call the roll.
Okay, Council Pro Tem Scaringi,
Aye.
Councilwoman Resnatti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns, Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Strawn is absent. So that's 6 ayes, 1 absent, Strawn.
Any discussion?
Call a question.
Question's been called. Councilwoman Resonetti. Clerk will call the roll. Councilman Scanlon, recognized for a reread. Thank you, sir.
Introductory ordinance 22-138, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the city of Binghamton to remove 187 Clinton Street.
Do I hear a second? Seconded by Councilwoman Resonetti. Any discussion? Is the question called? Councilwoman Resonetti, clerk will call the roll.
Okay, Council Pro Tem Council Pro Tem Scaringi,
President. Aye.
keeping me on my toes here.
Yes.
It's also late.
Councilwoman Resnetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns, Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Strawn is absent. So that's 6 ayes, 1 absent, Strawn.
Passes unanimously in the quorum present. Clerk will now call into the roll introductory ordinance 22-145 considered in finance.
Yes, so this is introductory ordinance 22-145 considered in finance, and this is an ordinance to amend the 2022 Binghamton Johnson City Joint Sewage Treatment Facilities budget for state and federal emergency disaster assistance.
Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon for the purposes of a motion.
Thank you. Introductory ordinance 22-140, an ordinance to allocate ARPA funds for the youth programming and services.
Second.
Councilman Scanlon, I think that was introductory ordinance 22-145. Sewage treatment plant.
Which one is it?
Last one listed
145.
under non-preferred agenda,
Oh.
sir.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Bounced around. Try it again. Introductory ordinance 22-145, an ordinance to amend the 2022 Binghamton Johnson City Joint Sewage Treatment Facilities budget for the state and federal emergency disaster assistance.
Second.
Again, just for the record, for introductory ordinance 22-145, motion by Councilman Scanlon, seconded by Councilwoman Rezanetti. Any discussion? Seeing none, is the question called?
Call the question.
Councilwoman Rezanetti, clerk will call the roll.
Council Pro Tem Scaringi,
Aye.
Councilwoman Resnetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Strawn is absent. So that's 6 ayes, 1 absent. Strawn.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Now we will continue with the non-preferred agenda items pulled from the preferred agenda. At this time, the clerk will call into the roll introductory ordinance 22-140, considered in finance.
Okay, this is introductory ordinance 22-140, considered in the Finance Committee, and this is an ordinance to allocate ARPA funds for youth programming and services.
Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon for the purposes of a motion.
Make a motion to accept 22-140.
Ordinance to allocate ARPA funds for youth programming and services. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Rezanetti. Any discussion? Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Scaringi. So as I'm sure you may have noticed, I pulled from the preferred agenda all of the proposed legislation having to do with ARPA funds. Now, the reason why I was on the preferred agenda was because I did support it. I did sponsor it. I am in support of all of these pieces of legislation as they, I think are almost all for youth services, which I think is an excellent use of ARPA funds, and there was one with Vines as well, which is coming up. But the reason why I pulled them from the preferred agenda, despite supporting these, and ultimately I do hope to vote in favor of them, what makes me nervous is that there are a lot of pieces of legislation having to do with ARPA money. There's a large sum of money that we are considering. However, I have not recently received a report of how much ARPA funding we have left. And we also don't, although this is, I think this packet of legislation is the closest we've come to kind of like a plan or kind of a funding with a vision. Like I see it, I get it with the youth programming, but it makes me nervous to vote yes on any of these right now while we don't have, or, I don't have an updated ledger of how much funding is left. So because of that reason, again, let me reiterate one last time, I do support all of these pieces of legislation. I do hope to vote in favor of them. However, I am going to make a motion to hold this over until we have that information, at which point I will feel comfortable voting. I assume I will feel comfortable voting in favor of these pieces of legislation.
Councilwoman Friedman, is it your prerogative to exercise a motion to hold all of these over?
Oh, can I do it all at once?
So
Sorry, yeah, sorry.
so is that a prerogative you want to exercise?
Yes.
Okay, so
Just procedurally,
Counsel.
you can do that if you wind up getting a second for all. Otherwise, the clerk can call your motion to hold on each individually if you don't get a second for all.
Okay. Can I make a motion to?
okay, so Councilwoman Freeman, if that's a prerogative you're going to exercise, I'd ask you to please pull back the motion and
Okay.
make a motion to exercise that prerogative for all of the introductory ordinances, please.
Okay, so I'll withdraw the motion that I just made. And instead, I would like to make a motion to hold over introductory ordinance 22-140, introductory ordinance 22-141, Introductory Resolution 22-80, Introductory Resolution 22-81, Introductory Resolution 22-82, Introductory Resolution 22-83, and Introductory Resolution 22-86.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
So again, for the record, the prerogative of holding over has been exercised by Councilwoman Friedman with the motion on introductory ordinances 22-140, 141, introductory resolution 22-80, 81, 82, 83, and 86, seconded by Councilman Burns. Are there any other? Nope. Seeing nothing else, we will move on to council comments. I've been told, Councilwoman Riley, the floor is yours.
I'll go first.
I'll go.
Go ahead.
That was my.
I don't want you to.
Good evening, everyone that's still left hanging on. They're out there. Councilman
everybody's
Scotland.
On me.
You know what? Hit the gavel.
It's your floor, ma'am. Go
All
ahead.
right, give me the gavel. All right, so again, guys, this has been an awesome week. As I shared earlier, you do not know the number of calls and messages and students and people stopping me. I did not want to walk my dogs, just FYI, but it has been great. The discourse and just the conversations that we've had surrounding this legislation. Again, great ideas. I wish I could have written them all out, but the meetings went up until about 4 o'clock today. I do want to also share the unfortunate privilege I had this week. I went to the mall and I had to get some things. I forgot the mall closed early, so I was there till about 8 something. And I walked outside and it was a person with a pallet, and it was someone that I'd canvassed, not only for my own campaign, but during my recent support of currently running candidates. And I said, well, why are you here? And they said, oh, I'm just hanging out. They lied to me. And I said, wait a minute, why are you here with that? You know how I can press. And they put their eyes down and averted their glance and said, this is where I sleep. And I said, no, you gotta be kidding me. I just saw you on X street. And they said, I've been evicted. The COVID money didn't come on time and my landlord wouldn't wait. And I say all of that just to share the reality. And it hits different when you know somebody. It hits different. So I said, well, we can't sit out here. It's cold. It was the first, it was after our work session, Monday, because we ran out of here. I went to the mall. It was cold and it was raining and it was one of the colder days. And I couldn't leave that person there. So I got on the phone. I tried to call 211, which is what we tell people when they're in need, call 211 for coordinated entry. There was no answer. And I called the VOA. There were no beds. And then I called the Y. There were no beds. And I said, well, I don't know what to do. I mean, y'all, I was crying at that point because it hit, especially when you know how much we have, right? I'm not going to tell you how much I spent in the mall, but it made it worse. So I said all of that to say that we sit on the side of the desk where we make decisions, and sometimes we just pass them because it sounds good. But when it comes to people we know that have faced hardships that they didn't plan, and you know that we have the power to do things and expand services so that they work to meet the needs of those we typically don't know, it hits differently. And I didn't know what to do. So long story short, I made sure the person had housing as long as I could accommodate. But I reached out to members of the stakeholders of Broome. They've been here. They had inboxed me about housing issues, and I said, well, what do I do? They gave me the steps, and then they said, there is this and this, try this. Fine, we did that. I called the city the next day on what I should do. And they said, next time, have the person walk to the VOA and try. Now, remember, I'm in Johnson City. How are they going to walk to the VOA? And if they get to the VOA and they say they don't have anyone, tell them to walk from the VOA to the Y, and they have to keep them. How many of you have ever walked? So again, I say all of that to say, we need to be mindful of why we have the money, why we spend the money, and what we can do to expand services for those that come upon hard times. I pray to God we never face such, because it hits differently. So that's that. On a brighter note, this is homecoming weekend. So come and hang out in the third district. Because you don't know. It's gonna be fun. My daughter, high school homecoming is this weekend too. So you'll see all the high schoolers running around, excited. Shout out to the court, really proud of them. And the Binghamton University college students that are also having homecoming this weekend. So just be mindful of such. And I think that's all I want to share. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Scringy. I had kind of a quiet couple of weeks, as was made public knowledge in advance of our special meeting to vote on the sewage treatment plant budget. I caught COVID. Took me 2.5 years, and it finally got me. So I spent a lot of time alone in my bedroom thinking about things. So I don't have too much to report in terms of city business, as I didn't really attend anything. But it was the Jewish holidays. So that's why we have our meeting today on Thursday instead of on our normally scheduled Wednesday. So it was the Jewish New Year, and yesterday was Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the Jewish year, where you kind of think about, many Jews will fast for 25 hours. And the idea is you are supposed to usurp, I don't know if that's the right word. You forego nourishing your physical body in favor of nourishing your spiritual self. And it's a chance to reflect on the past year and what you've done well, but also your shortcomings. And I cry every year when, I'm in synagogue all day, meditating on, where I've fallen short as a person, as a council member. And it's, I think that was really powerful, Councilwoman Riley, what you just shared, because we were out canvassing together, and I remember that person, and it does make me think about like my shortcomings as a council member, where, it's easy to, we deal with multiple thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars on an everyday basis. And it's easy to just be like, yeah, sure. Without thinking about like, what do we owe the people that live here, as our constituents? And, it's hard. I think about shortcomings like, I want to save the world. I think a lot of us ran for office because we want to save the world. And it's really frustrating when we're not able to to do that. So, yeah, there was one other thing that I wanted to mention that is escaping me at the moment. There's a couple of trunk or treat events that are coming up. I think kind of superfluous to mention those after talking about homelessness, but I guess there will be another work set or business meeting before those events, but that's the only thing really that I have on my calendar that's coming up that I would like to mention. So I hope everyone who was celebrating had a Shana Tova, Gmar Chatima Tova, Happy New Year, meaningful fast. And I yield the floor. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Councilman Burns.
Thank you, Mr. President. Seeing people homeless is heartbreaking, and I thank you for bringing that up and sharing that with us. Since I spoke last, the Binghamton Fire Department lost a retiree. His name was Richard Callahan. So I just want to recognize from City Council and thank him and his family for his 35 years of service. He was a captain. He happened to be my first friend in school in kindergarten and helped me deliver papers on that paper route I was telling you about. Anyway, so I just want to recognize him. And I want to congratulate Giovanni Scarengi. He's the Grand Marshal of the Columbus Day Parade. So that's very, very nice. And the parade is coming up and I hope it's a great one. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon.
So reassessment in the city of Binghamton. I asked the previous assessor if during reassessment, it sounds great because we're going to take the people whose homes or the student housing who's assessed low. We want to make it pay more taxes. I get it. It makes a lot of sense. But the previous assessor could not tell me that my neighbor's house will not go up during reassessment, which means people in our districts, people that we represent. And he had no way of saying if it was the residents who live in our district, the normal homeowner taxes were not going to go up. And I guarantee the assessor today, City of Binghamton, would say the same thing. They cannot guarantee that. So there's no way I could support reassessment in the City of Binghamton in an attempt to raise businesses and student housing. I don't want to raise my neighbor's taxes. Last thing I want to do. So if you ask the question to the assessor in the City of Binghamton, I guarantee she would not be able to guarantee that the normal homeowners' taxes wouldn't go up. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Rennia.
Thank you, Councilman Scaringi. Not much to report. I just wanted to remind everybody that this month is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It's really important. I think that probably all of us know someone who's been affected, impacted by breast cancer. And so I would just encourage us all to, as we move forward, certainly, I mean, always, but certainly in the month of October, to be making sure that we're supporting any awareness and education in any way, shape, or form regarding this issue. And with that, it's been a long evening. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thoughts and prayers at the loss of Richard Callahan. Our prayers are with the Callahan family and the entire Binghamton Fire Department at the loss. Motion to adjourn. Who was the first?
So moved. I'm sorry.
Second. Scanlon, Resonetti, we are adjourned.